presentation by Joe Schaffer, a candidate for the Associate Director of Operations and Administration. Joe comes to us from Oregon State. He is one of our Sports and Special Programs coordinators here at Rec Sports. Hails from the desk right outside my office. But I'll let Joe do a little bit more of an introduction. And then when you guys are done, please fill out the candidate report. Either give it to me afterwards or get it to Tina Clausen by July 16th.
Thanks, Mitch. Well, I know most of you, and I've met you today. So I'm Joe Schaffer. I'm an applicant for the Associate Director position here at Oregon State University. My background is currently the Coordinator of Sports Special Programs here at Oregon State. I've also had experience in also sport clubs and intramurals down at San Diego State, and then also operations down at San Diego State, and then also have experience working in the nonprofit world of being a sports director at the YMCA down in San Diego. So as far as the presentation goes, we had two different prompts, and this is one that I selected. Was national trends in higher education and campus recreation, and how we would tie those into the mission of the university. So one thing about my presentation when I was looking at it, I really didn't want us to call them trends, because I feel like when we talk about trends, that's something that's happening right now and it's eventually going to sunset. I was looking more particularly on more responsibilities that we have in higher education and in collegiate recreation. So, and because the prompt was to tie them into the university's mission, I just wanted to touch, just to show that to you. I know that so most people, you understand our mission at Rec Sports, but as far as the mission for the university goes, and one particularly the part that I highlighted was that Oregon State University promotes economic, social, cultural, and environmental progress for the people of Oregon, the nation, and the world. And I think that some of my issues are going to tie directly into that mission. So the first responsibility I think we have for campus recreation that's going on right now is sustainability. So as far as sustainability goes, right now for our future and for our well-being, sustainability is important, because whether it's directly or indirectly, our well-being is going to be dependent on the natural world. And sustainability and practicing sustainability is going to be important into the fact that it's going to help us to have the resources that we have now, as well as be able to have the resources in the future to have a healthy environment and have a healthier world. So as far as sustainability goes with recreation, I think we have a lot of opportunity here. And why is it important to Rec Sports? Right now, these are a few of the things that I wanted to highlight was, it is important for the students. Nationally in the history, especially in the United States, a lot of the social movements have been happening at the collegiate level, on universities and campuses, and this is an issue that is important to the students. They're driving this, as well as some of our environmental issues are driving this as well. And right now, with recreation sports and how much breadth that we have and how much reach that we do have, we have an opportunity to make a difference. We have a good platform where we are seeing a majority of students from all walks of life. It's not narrowed down to, just the science majors, but we do have students from all majors coming to participate in rec sports, and I think that we have a platform to be able to make a stand on this issue and educate the students. Another responsibility that we have is that in recreation sports we do leave we have a large carbon footprint. This is a huge facility. We're using a lot of resources in order to operate, and we understand the value that we're giving to the campus community. But it's also important to realize that it does take resources to do what we do. And we are a facility that's, we're open well over 100 hours a week during peak season. We use a lot of resources like water, for showers and for the pool. And just the massive space that we have is leaving a large carbon footprint. So we need to look for ways, how are we reducing that carbon footprint to contribute to sustainability. The other thing that makes good business sense, there's different recreation centers that are taking on more sustainable practices, and they are able to, saving on waste is going to equate to dollar savings and cost savings in the resources that we are using. So it's common sense from the business aspect. Of course, there's going to be large investment on the front end, but In the end, a lot of the universities that have already gone to sustainable practices are seeing the benefits of those. San Diego State's a great example. They've installed photovoltaics on the hillside of their aquatic center, so they are using that water to heat the swimming pools down there. So that's already made its money back as far as the energy that it was producing to heat those pools up from the initial costs. So, and lastly, it supports the mission of OSU, and we've already showed this, but definitely for the environmental progress. And another part of sustainability, I was going to talk about the NERSA model for sustainable practices, and I think that's a good foundation that ties directly into this, into our mission, especially since those 4 factors of progress for the university is also at least 3 of the spheres of influence that the NERSA model has. So NERSA has adopted the goal of providing healthy people and healthy communities, and they're advocating that this is the sweet spot. That's what they're trying to gain. And their valuing of sustainability and their model is really incorporating all those. So we're looking at, compared to the OSU's mission, that we have both environmental, social, and economic factors that are influencing the sustainability model. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to look at and tackle these issues and ask ourselves, what are we doing as far as rec sports goes to manage some of these issues? So, when we look at the social sphere, are we looking at how are we creating inclusive programming? When we create a new program, are we keeping that in mind of who can all participate and what limitations might there be that they can't participate? And I'm going to go to inclusiveness a little later. Coming down to, this Venn diagram where it crosses over between social and the economic spheres as far as accessibility goes, and affordability. So when we create a new program, are we taking consideration that of the rising cost of education and how much that's going to affect participation? Can the students even afford to be able to participate in those programs? When we look at the economic environmental side, we look at resource efficiency. So if we take on a new practice within rec sports, are we keeping in mind, are there efficiencies that we can to reduce the material that we're going to buy, or there's ways for us as far as saving energy costs? What are we doing to be more efficient with our resources there? And also fiscal stewardship. One of the tenets here at Rec Sports is that we're good stewards of our resources. So are we getting the most bang for our buck when we do any of our purchasing? So. So I'm going to be jumping back and forth between a few things here. So I think that does lay the foundation, the groundwork for how we approach things. I think, again, those are sort of the questions that we can ask ourselves when we do start new programming, or if if we do have the opportunity to do a new facility design, or are we keeping those things in mind? And I know that we are. But I think it's just making sure that we're all being conscious of those questions. And as far as what can we do, I'm not sure if you guys have seen this or not, but the National Resource Defense Council has put out basically a website it's for the Green Advisor for Collegiate Recreation and for collegiate athletics. And it's a great website, and it gives you all the steps and different resources you might need to start a green initiative on your campus. So from here, you can look at it as far as where to get started. It tells you who to get involved, how to engage students, how to track progress up here in this bar. And then down below, it does have different ideas and different things that we can do to reduce waste. What chemicals are we using? Are we using greener chemicals? For off-campus travel, are we keeping in mind? For a good example would be for like sport clubs, are we looking at, say, hotels that have been committed to green practices? So there's all these different opportunities for us to use this guide to figure out what are ways that we are doing to be more sustainable. And I know that we've periodically had audits and figured out different ways that we can be, but I think it's more of a holistic approach to how are we really defining what spheres of influence that we have in rec sports, and how can we have a more sustainable model and being good stewards of not only our resources but also the environment. So the next responsibility that I wanted to talk about was just our responsibility to cater to the needs of our changing student population. I had the opportunity last year to go to the NASPA Persistence and Assessment Conference, and one of the keynote speakers was talking about retention on college campuses, and they're talking about this evolution of the student. We're no longer seeing traditional students. When we think of traditional students, they fall into these categories where, they're 18 to 24-year-olds, they've fully financially responsible, or supported by their parents, and they enroll and graduate in one university. So they've had that traditional cycle that there's a good chance maybe our parents went through. But that's not the case anymore. We're starting to see what we like to call is the post-traditional student. So we are seeing students that are over the age of 24. They might be enrolled part-time, they're working full-time, they're fully supporting themselves. And currently on the national level, 2/3 of all students who earn their bachelor's degrees have attended at least 2 or more colleges. And that includes me. I took college classes at the local community college before I came to Oregon State. So I think it's identifying that, realizing that these are the students that are going to be coming to our campus. Right now, 30% of the students at Oregon State are 25 years or older. So it's a huge demographic for us. And looking at other demographics and just looking at the evolution of what we have at Oregon State, right now 37% of our students are non-residents, so they're coming from outside of Oregon. A lot of times when we think of culture, we might think of other countries, but really we're bringing students from outside of Oregon to this community. So just being cognizant of 37% of those students are non-resident students, and that's a 10% increase from last year. These numbers are based on spring 2014, just so you're aware. And then 20% of the students are U.S. minority students, and that's a 9% increase. And then international students are at 11%. Of the student population, which is a 19% increase, especially with the program and the introduction of Into to our college campus. So, we definitely need to be looking at ways of how we're going to be influencing these numbers, because this is what the demographics is going to be looking like at Oregon State. And not only to our mission, but the university also has their own performance metrics on how are we measuring this. So, looking at it really quickly, I'm not sure. Some of you probably are aware of these, but these are the benchmarks for excellence. So these are the benchmarks that the university has put forth for us to measure our goals. It's part of the strategic plan for the 21st century for Oregon State University. And a couple of things that I'd like to highlight is going to be the first-year retention rate, the 6-year graduation rate. So, because I know it's kind of a little small, but for the first year retention rate last year was 84.2%. Our goal in 3 years from now, from 2017 to 18 academic year, is going to be 88%. The 6-year graduation rate is currently at 61.5. Our target is going to be 67%. U.S. minority students last year is at 20%. Our goal is 25%, and the international students was 8.9%, which we already saw was over that. And our goal is to have 15% to be international students within the next 3 years. And we have been on pace for the most part to hit these numbers for each part of the strategic plan that President Ray and Sabah have put forth for us. So it does give you an idea of that what the goals are for the administration and how we're going to see that affect some of the work we do. So, and just looking at these are just a few of those metrics. And I think the ones that we definitely have the opportunity to influence are going to be the first-year retention rate, the 6-year graduation rate, the U.S. minority students percent to total students, and the international percent of to total students. I wouldn't say we're necessarily going out and doing our job as far as going in enrollment and going out and seeking out these populations to come to Oregon State, but I think it's important that we are here for the other two issues, which are retention and graduation rates. As far as the retention rates go, I think that what we need to do here is be able to have a program that is welcoming to those students, that we're providing outlets for them to participate. We already know that students that are more involved are going to be more likely to stay with the university. And that's going to affect the first year the retention rates. I think it does, definitely for the international students and the minority students, if we are providing them services and programs that do target them, they're willing to stay a part of the university longer and have a little more commitment. Especially a lot of our programs where it's not just about participating in a sport or anything else, but we also have leadership opportunities, and they feel a much more connection with the university, and that's going to affect that first year retention rate. With the 6-year graduation rate, again, I think it's that students that are participating on campus activities are going to be more successful, and I think we play a critical role in making sure that we're supporting the university's goals when it comes down to these performance metrics. The next responsibility I did want to talk about was accessibility and inclusion. And I think this is a topic that we are all committed to as far as our mission here at Rec Sports, as well as the mission of the university, being committed to an opportunity for all. We want to be inclusive of everybody, regardless of age, regardless of gender, of sexual orientation, of veteran status, or disability. And we do have a moral obligation to make sure that we are opening our doors and our programs to serve those students, especially if they come from a community of underrepresentation or of a population that has faced discrimination in the past. And I think, especially with people with disabilities, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are aware of the issues that are facing, but we also need to make sure that we're doing our best to work towards offering them, whether it's facilities or programs, and being able for them to have accessibility to what we have. And we must provide reasonable accommodations so everybody has equal access and equal opportunity to participate in all of our programs, services, or activities and facilities. I guess I can go with the clicker. And this was a study done by NERSA in 2010, or just one of the benchmarks they did. At the time in 2010, only 41% of collegiate recreation programs reported any type of inclusive programming, which I feel is definitely not enough. I don't know the current number. I know a lot of different programs are moving forward with more inclusive programming, including ours. But this is a number that us as a national as a national organization, particularly with NERSA, that's something that we do need to tackle, and making sure that these numbers rise, that there are opportunities for people with disabilities to participate. And looking at DAS, as far as last year goes, they had 851 students who were enrolled in disability and access services, which equates to 1 in 3 students, which is a huge number. And I think that just being aware that we do have that population and how are we going to serve that population is going to be important. So, some of the things that we are doing right now, I think they're great first steps. Is providing some of the inclusive programming. Stormy Givens had went to her presentation on the adaptive rock climbing that they're doing over at ALI, which is great. Both programs will talk about Kyle Urban's wheelchair basketball, intramural basketball as well. Both of those programs came initiated by 2 students who were working here as part of the Department of Rec Sports, and I think it's great that's a great start where we are looking at offering alternative or adaptive programming for those individuals who, they might have been to the end of, well, that's definitely not an activity that I'm ever going to be able to participate. And the ingenuity of our students taking on the responsibility of creating those programs and being able to get those individuals involved. And the other program was Kyle Urban, one of our graduate assistants. He came to us to pitch the idea of starting a wheelchair basketball intramural program, which is another great step. I think that we can offer those programs to everybody. I think it's we need to offer it to those students with disabilities so they can come in and participate in our program. But I think it's also important because it does create an awareness and some empathy for the participants who are able-bodied that are participating in those programs. Another opportunity is that we are providing is we know we have partnerships with Impact, which is a great program where we are partnering with not only the OSU community but the greater Corvallis community and providing our facility to help out with those families with special needs. And I think that we need to look for every opportunity so we can use the great resources that we have here to support those kind of organizations. So what can we do further? Just like when we come down to sustainability, I think that we need to keep accessibility at the forefront when we come to both facility design, as well as our programming. I know that this last year that they came in and did an accessibility audit of Dixon, of actually the whole campus. I'm not sure if we got those numbers back or not, but I think it's something where we do need to keep that in our minds when we get to, if we go down the path of creating or building or expanding the facility. And I don't think it's not just about, meeting and complying with ADA, but I think it's going above that. I think it's, talking to those individuals and finding out beyond ADA, what are some of those things that you need. We can, are the benches in the locker room, say, wide enough for, an individual who is in a wheelchair. So I think it's keeping that in mind at the forefront whenever we come down to designing programs in the facility. I think we should be working with Disability and Access Services and find opportunities to promote their involvement. Where do they see gaps in opportunities for their students to participate? And then lastly, I think it's important that we train both the student and professional staff on accessibility and inclusion issues. Again, we do have great resources on this campus with having an office like DAS and also with the Office of Equity and Inclusion. But I think it's about bringing those experts in to facilitate conversations for both training our student, the frontline staff, as well as us as professionals to manage these issues. And then my last responsibility, I think it's about telling the story for recreation, that we are a part of the curriculum. I threw that in for Josh that didn't put co-curricular or put the curricular. So that we are influencing the students in their learning development. And I did put co-curricular on this one just to make it work. But the role of recreation, we are transitioning away from just that extracurricular activities. We're moving towards being a part of the co-curricular education. And I think that we do need to be methodical as well as intentional about how we provide those experiences. The students are learning more. Well, I wouldn't say more. That's not fair to academics. They are learning just as much on their outside of the classroom experiences as much as they are from the inside classroom experiences. And I think there's a lot of programs that we offer here where the students are getting that practical and functional application of what they've learned in the classroom and being able to apply that to real life situations. So, especially for the students who are part of Guido's KEEP program, just the athletic trainers who are, or the personal trainers who are working in the fitness room or in the weight room. Our sport club officers are learning different responsibilities that are outside of anything they ever were to learn in the classroom. Especially the ALI trip leaders are getting that hands-on experience of facilitating groups and dealing with those real life risk management issues. So I think it's important that we do, it's our responsibility as a profession to make sure that we are a part of those conversations. And I think this is the model that we do have. We do need, as far as reaching out and coinciding with the university's goals and missions, it is about aligning with those learning goals for graduates. I think it's also part of aligning with our own goals as a department. What professional skills do we want our students leaving with who are participating in either our programs or our employees? And from there, it's going to be about developing the curricula that does meet those goals. And most importantly, it's going to be about assessing what we learned, because assessing what we learned is going to be how we're going to tell our story to everybody. It's going to be telling our story to our stakeholders from the Student Installed Fees Committee. It's going to be about telling our stories to academic affairs as far as how we're contributing to student success. And most importantly, I think it's going to be about how we're communicating our story and telling that to the learning goals, not the learning goals for graduates, but the mission of Oregon State University and how we're making a positive impact on those performance metrics. So those are issues that again, I didn't want to call them trends. I think they are more of responsibilities that we have to the students here. And of course, it was a pretty broad topic, and there's many other responsibilities that we do have, but I think those were the four salient points that I wanted to touch on. So, and thank you. I thought she was going to be here.
All right, everybody. We have the next 20 to 30 minutes to ask any questions of Joe, whether about the presentation or about the position. So please fire away.
So you spoke about servicing the students quite a bit, and could you kind of give your view or maybe trends on the service to the community and more specifically like rentals or renting out the facilities that are built maybe for the students?
Right. So, yeah, I think, like I said, as far as like they say, like the impact program, we do have great facilities in here. The students have seen that there's a need to invest in these sort of facilities so we can cater to everybody's needs. There's going to be trying to find that fine balance between our student population versus rentals. But I think it's going to be at that community outreach. I don't know if a lot of people make it to say the interior of campus to see what facilities that we do have. Particularly Student Legacy Park or Dixon for that matter, or McAlexander. I think McAlexander is definitely a facility that's tucked away and a lot of people don't know about it. So I think it's about getting the word out there, particularly for our times when we do have it available to the community and letting them know that we can support the Corvallis community needs. I know we do after our graduation parties here. We host numerous camps with partnerships with athletics, but I think there's definitely opportunity to try to capitalize on that. And even some of the programs that we are offering. We are offering the family climb and the family swim. So I think it's just about making sure that the local community does know about that, and even cross advertising with some of the other programs. So are there anybody in the community that don't know about programs like Impact that are using these facilities?
Can you talk a little bit more about first year and 6-year graduation rates? Because you mentioned about having programs that would help with that, or program opportunities to get folks engaged. Can you talk more about some specific ways that they're showing that it makes a difference to be engaged in those kind of programs and how it leads to graduation? Like, that's kind of a far leap, you know what I mean? From
Right.
So you participate in all these things, you're more likely to graduate. And excellent. So what are the ways that deepen that connection to raise the numbers?
Right. So, it is about, I personally believe that it is about involvement. And I think that, we are seeing that the numbers, that the students are feeling more, they're feeling more of a connection to the university. So I think that's taking care of like the retention part of, building the community that we have here on campus. So whether that outlet it was through joining a student organization or being a part of being more involved in the first year experience and being part of, your meeting people on your floor for your residence halls. On the retention side, from what I've seen, and a couple of studies that I've looked at, one was Douglas Franklin from Ohio University. He did a lot of his research on student involvement, and he's seen that there's a sweet spot there as well as far as involvement goes, but students are going to be more successful in graduating on time if they're not doing over 20 hours a week of work, that they are working on campus, and that they're being involved in some kind of extracurricular activity. So I think those numbers are there to support that. But I also think it's about some of the things that we're doing here as a recreation center to support that. So right now, I would say there they're smaller things, but I think they make a bigger impact, are like such as like study rooms that we host. So during finals week, this room is off limits because we turn it into a study session for our students. And I think it's also about some of the, I use our staff as, I think it's the easiest population to work with just because we have a little, I wouldn't take more control over them, but we have more interaction with our staff. But I think it's also about providing opportunities for their student success. So when we are looking at our curriculum, when we come to building for our employees, are we incorporating some of those things like time management skills and study skills, which we are. When we were at our staff supervisor retreat, it's not about this is how you swipe somebody in, this is not how we launder the towels. It's about having time management skills, on being able to balance a 15 credit academic load along with being a employee for us, on top of being engaged in either our programs or other programs across campus. So I think there's opportunities for us to take advantage of that. And I also think there's other parts of our office or other parts of our program that are doing that as well. So I think it's a part of the outreach team, making sure that the students are aware of healthier habits that can lead to their success. So whether that's healthy eating, or a reminder about sit less, move more, doing anything that is going to de-stress them and make them stronger, not only physically but mentally. So I hope that answers. Any other questions?
So this isn't so much, I guess, about the presentation, but more, what do you see as the major initiatives or challenges that you would face coming into this position? So what are the, obviously it's an operations and administration position, so dealing with the business center and some of that kind of stuff. So what do you see are some of the trends or things that would be in your first year?
I think right now it's just about I would say the climate of change at the university level. And I think there's several factors that are going into that. One right now, just in our area, is going to be a change in leadership from the Department of Rec Sports and the leadership from our director. I think the next level above that is Susie Brubaker-Cole coming on as Vice Provost of Student Affairs. And I think it's also just the growing change with the Board of Trustees coming on board. There's going to be so many different things that, it might have worked as a part of the OUS system, but those are going to be off the table here. I know that we're going to adopt a lot of those policies, but the board can come in and I wouldn't say pick and choose, but they can decide on where changes need to be made. And I think that this position is going to be something that you have to be adaptable to that change and to the changing tide of the philosophy of the university that could potentially happen. And so I think that's going to be a big challenge. And I think right now, especially like the business centers coming online, I think they've come online, and I think that we're still in a period where we're still working out a lot of the different procedures and policies with them, because it was so decentralized, and making sure that those policies are being followed and enforced. And I think that's going to be one critical aspect of this job, is making sure that the department is aware of those changes. And we had talked earlier at the leadership team where this position is going to be that conduit of communicating and making sure that we're ahead of the game in how any kind of those policies are going to be able to influence, or how those might influence not just one area but other areas within rec sports, and making sure that we're taking a step back and seeing all those. And I had an opportunity to talk with also the rec support team, and that was another group that is going to need to be able to navigate that change, and they're the ones that are on the front lines, and I think it's getting their voice at the table as well for them to understand the changes in policy and and how are they going to influence the procedures that go in place. Because honestly, right now there's we might have some influence on those policies, but a lot of those policies we're going to have to work with no matter what. And so I think it's about getting everybody's perspective and how are we going to manage and do things right within the policy.
This kind of follows up from that in the first 6 months, if you were to be in this position, priorities within the department, priorities outside of the department.
Well, for me, I understand that it is within. For me personally, coming into the role, this is a new job for me. I've worked on the programming side, so there's going to be. It's going to be about learning exactly how operations work here. I've worked operations before at San Diego State, but every university and just how we do things they're different. So I think it's going to be about me getting acclimated to how we do things here, which I know a lot of them, but I don't know them all. So it's about learning those, and then from there I think it's about building those relationships and partnerships throughout campus on who is going to be important for me to be successful in my job and for me to be to me to be successful for our department. So definitely be conversations with the business center on what does that look like for us? What were some needs that they might not be seeing that's coming out of our department, and what are some needs that we're seeing that might not be coming from their department? So I think it's about establishing those relationships, and then understanding where we both are coming from and agreeing on our goals to be carried out. And I mean, there's going to be other partnerships throughout campus that that I'm going to need to develop. Especially with the operations side, I think it's going to be a lot of external clients that we'll need to be partnering with. We talked about rentals before. I think there's a lot of different areas that we're going to need to making sure that they're aware of what we have to offer, and because during the summertime that's our time to generate revenue. So other thing is going to be sitting down with the leadership team and understanding what the initiatives are. Being already within the department, I have a strong inkling of what those are, but it's about what are we doing strategically to carry those forward. And I think in the first 6 months, it's going to be getting acclimated to that climate, sitting back and learning from others and what they see in this position and where they see us going, and then from there making the influence and try to carry that out. Tina.
Just for fun, tell me about the photograph that you posted.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping Sheila would have been here. So we had the opportunity to go out to the Outdoor Recreation Center's new dynamic course, which is probably the greatest thing I've ever been on. So, in the past it's always been, you've had somebody down below belaying you, and this is one of the things where, to me, it was like taking one of the biggest risks ever, is trusting that I'm going to strap my own cables onto another cable and just completely rely on myself. So, they have, I think it's 6 different elements that you can just traverse back and forth on. And Sheila and I went through pretty much every one of those together. And she's always probably one of the most supportive partners you're ever going to be to work with, and it's just kind of funny. And Mark Belson shot that from the bottom. So it was a fun day on the course to see some of the great things that they're doing over at the Outdoor Recreation Center. So I definitely, if there's any student group who wants to do any kind of T-building activity, going from the low course up to the high course is just one of those things that's just takes you out of your element. Let's put it that way.
There clearly was a reason you chose to include that in this presentation. Can you help me connect it with this position?
Right. Well, for me, it's about I guess it's the family atmosphere that I do get from this department. I do have the luxury of being an internal candidate and knowing a lot of the individual players that are here, and I think that this is the epitome of why I loved working here. There's people who are supportive. There's it's never a dull moment, and I think that's truly something that I appreciate about this department and continue to want to be a part of. So. Bill.
Joe, you mentioned some numbers about, initially about the graduation rate and the 6-year commitment. I think that it also relates to the directive from the government or the governor on the 2020.
Yep. 44.
And also about matriculation or about persistence and all that. And it was interesting because this morning you may have gotten the same email, we like subscribe to Athletic Business, and that study that just came out that proved from Michigan State that people who participate in recreational sports, rec centers, their GPA is higher. And so another thing, but is that information important? And how do are we doing a good enough job getting that out there? And or why is it important to relay that information to ourselves and our colleagues in partnering in that role? You know, as you said, maybe a liaison or a conduit or
Right. So I think that we need to do a better job of being able to share that story and to share what we are doing. And I think it most importantly is about assessing, and it's about assessing our programs and being able to say what we're doing is actually making an influence. It's one thing to say it anecdotally, but I think it's another to actually have the data to show it. And as far as that assessment, I think it's something that we can do a better job of in asking the right questions from our students. So I know with ALI, you guys have that on your survey as far as did your involvement in ALI impact you staying at the campus of OSU? And I think those are statistics that are important for us to tell our message. And I think that we just need to look for forums in order for us to get that message out. Being on the assessment committee, we had talked about when you guys did the poster presentation at over at LaSalle's with the university, and you had colleagues from the academic side wondering why rec sports was even at the table. And I think that message is not getting out to those individuals, and I think it's important that it does. And I think that there's also opportunities for, there are opportunities for partnerships, and different areas are starting to cultivate that. I keep coming to ALI because they're doing such a great job as far as cultivating those relationships with the academic side, with HPS or PHHS, and PAC. Mitch and I had a conversation yesterday about partnering with the same college about as far as what can we do to create a coaching certificate when it comes down to programs. So I think that it's about getting the message of what we are doing to support the university goals, but also the academic side of things. And again, I think it is truly about the curriculum and being a part of the curriculum as opposed to just being out there and just throwing some flag football flags out there in a football and saying, oh, we're just out here to play.
Any other last question? Well, thanks, Joe. Appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. So if you have your feedback, then I can collect that. If not,